All right, we'll go ahead and call our Wednesday, October 11, 2023 Roanoke County School Board work session to order. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Vashani, can you read us into closed, please?
Yes, I can. I move that the Roanoke County School Board convene in closed session for the following: to discuss the acquisition of real property for a public purpose where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the school board pursuant to the real property exemption at 2.2-3711A3 of the Code of Virginia.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. right, we'll call our meeting back to order. Mr. Shawnee, can you read us out of closed, please?
Yes, no problem. I move that the Roanoke County School Board come out of closed session for the following: to discuss the acquisition of real property for a public purpose where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the school board pursuant to the real property exemption at 2.2-3711A3 of the Code of Virginia. I also move to certify to the best of each member's knowledge only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter and only subject public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the school board.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. And we have no action from closed. So move on to item 3.01, review of programming for the new CTE Center. Mr. Jason Sir, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Nicely. Just appreciate the opportunity to present this information and have a pretty lengthy a lengthy PowerPoint with a number of slides, but it's going to be program by program, and we're going to go through that. As you all have questions, please feel free to interject, and we'll get going here. So I just wanted to start with a little bit of background and just real quick running through some of the data. Christian and I have worked pretty hard on making sure these numbers are as current and as accurate as possible. So the current enrollment at Burton Center is 884 students and with 739 CTE students. We broke that down. The number of applicants this past year, or for the current school year, for 2023-24, was 942, and 858 of those were CTE first choice applicants. So students who put, when the application process is begun, there's the form, students are able to list up to 3 programs. That number, 858, is the number of students that listed a CTE program as first on their choice. And so I thought that was a very relevant number.
What's the difference, 884 to 150 students
I'm sorry, say that again, the 884?
versus the 739?
Okay, so 884 is the total number of students at Burton Center.
Okay.
739 of those are CTE
Okay,
students.
gotcha.
Anything else? I mean, that's
Yeah, so that's taking out the ELL, our
I
special.
figured that's what,
Okay, yeah.
I just wanted.
And another point of clarification, that number 942 is applicants by the January 15th deadline. We did have a few more trickle in after the January 15th deadline.
So the number of students enrolled in first-year CTE programs then were 372, and you can do the math there, that, about 480-plus students did not get their first choice or get enrolled. Now, that's either were denied their choice, withdrew, or
Declined the
withdrew or
seat.
declined their program of choice. And if they were offered it, they declined it. We get those types of situations sometimes, but the majority that have to be ranked and then get their first choice of CTE program. Mr. Kish and his staff do a very good job of ensuring as many students get placed in the right programs as possible, and we fill those up to the max as is possible. Want to stress that there is a wide variety of programming. The state VDOE breaks the programs and the content into 17 career clusters. And I thought it was important to note that Roanoke County Public Schools is able to offer at least put a finger on 13 out of 17 of those career clusters at just our center. That's not to count what we offer at our base high schools and base middle schools. So, at the base middle schools, we have a lot of CTE exploratory programs. The middle schoolers are able to explore there. And then at the high school, we have more exploration and then opportunity for students to really start delving into different career possibilities with the capstone programs primarily at our center, at the CTE center. So that's kind of the I want to make sure that we're aware that CTE isn't just represented at Burton, that we have that across the county. Students have opportunity in our marketing department, our family and consumer science, our business department, and our technology and education department in the base high schools, taking courses there as well, not just at Burton Center.
What he means by capstone program, that's probably self-explanatory, but for example, they could take some culinary classes at the base schools, but if they want to, more specialize in that, then they go over to the specialty center for that. So it's that kind of thing. There are some basic level courses, then they go over there.
Right. Program advisories is the next thing I just wanted to touch on. Each of the programs at Burton Center, Mr. Kish does a good job of ensuring that the teachers in each of the programs have an advisory. That's a way for each of those programs to stay in touch with industry demands and staying current with programming. If there's anything that needs to be added, one of the nice things about the way CTE competencies work for each of the CTE programs is, we have the state outlined competencies, and then at the local level, we can add competencies that local industry might say, hey, we really need this program to touch on these competencies, and we can write those in and be specific. So the program advisory committees consist of industry representatives, parents, students, and really help inform the instructor, keep them up to date. Other background information, just wanted to mention that we do offer dual enrollment in specific programs where it is poignant for the students. And you can see the list there. I'm not going to read them all. You all can see there's a robust dual enrollment course offerings. And those, we encourage the students to do their homework and make sure that if they're going to, pay and take advantage of those dual enrollment offerings, that it will feed into what they want to study beyond high school and their career pathway there. So some of it's on them to make sure that it fits, but it is offered there at Burton Center. We have some other centralized programs at Burton. The ELL program, as you know, is centralized there for those students that are really in need of intensive ELL training. The special ed transition program is centralized there. That's that intensive transition program. There's really three acronyms that I didn't put up there, but it falls under three different levels, and those students attend at Burton. And I will say that the EOL and special ed transition each take up small classrooms. They're not labs, they're not big areas, but those are during the day. Then I've listed the ISAEP and the JVG programs, which are both grant-driven, that we oversee. ISAEP's in the evening, utilizes class space in the evening, so there's no additional space there. And JVG is kind of interwoven throughout the school day with multiple programs on campus and does not take up additional space. The evening adult education opportunities, I just want to touch on these. There's three different options here of adult education that we host at Burton. The Region 5 Adult Ed Consortium is a bunch of school divisions that come together. They're honchoed now out of Roanoke City. That's where Leah DaCosta honchos that Region 5 adult, and that's primarily EOL training and GED training for adults. We offer space at Burton in the evenings for that program. We also work with Virginia Western. Right now, I think we offer automotive service training as part of Virginia Western's course offerings, and as well as mechatronics robotics or machining. So Virginia Western uses our campus for those adult ed opportunities. And then our in-house, and that's what we call it. I don't know if that's the best term, but it's the in-house stuff that we can put together and be very flexible with. It's what we saw up at Massanutten Tech Center. They have a robust program, something we would really like to capitalize on with this new center coming down the pike. And I think we have ample room to make that happen.
Can I interrupt you?
Yep.
So currently right now with the evening adult education, how much revenue is that generating?
Not much.
Okay.
This past year, Mr. Overfelt ran an adult ed program, and actually, as the school board's been generous to be able to let that money, whatever revenue is created off of that, to come back to the
program.
center
Okay.
and back to the welding program. So the teacher, especially if the teacher is teaching it, they see the benefits of that coming back to their program. I think that's important.
And by comparison, Massanutten, I think they make enough revenue to fund their entire program, their operating expenses. I
I'd have
kind of,
to check on it. I
no,
don't
it was,
think it was that
it was all,
They have
It was big money.
it was big
Compared to what
money,
we do.
in the millions, like.
They were building
It
those
was
small
significant.
houses and all of that.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what you typically do, especially starting out, is you funnel that money back into those programs to fund special projects like that. At least in the initial
I
stage.
definitely think that should be a goal moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a big, and I have it on my last slide, but I'll mention it now. I think it's important as we go to make this new center, that we, as we look at the labs that we're setting up, that we set it up for our students primarily, but if there's an opportunity without a lot of additional cost to set up, not necessarily square footage wise, but as far as equipment, making sure that we're having the right equipment in there to offer, let's say with our dental assistant, that we can offer dental hygienist and kind of extend the training into adult ed. If there's not much cost there, I think it could really come back to benefit us. So it's things like that that we really want to keep in
You're
mind.
making use of this space.
Yes.
You're keeping the lights on a little bit longer.
Yeah,
They had an entire side for nursing. Was it nursing they had that for at Massanutten?
yeah, I think.
They do the
They had a whole,
Yeah.
like the one side was dedicated to adult education.
Yeah, but like Mr. Scher said, if if it's the same equipment anyway.
Sure.
For our
Right.
kids to do dental assistant, if other, companies want to come in and do the dental hygienist at night, it's a win-win.
I think what you're talking about on the sales side is they have someone dedicated to do some projects to sell, to bring revenue in that we don't have currently.
When they
Yeah, and
had,
that's gonna be a.
That's what we'll.
and I think they had a full-time employee doing that, didn't they?
Yeah.
They have adult ed.
But that's where a lot of that revenue comes from, the extra revenue, I guess.
And they had sponsorships too.
Yeah, well, that's all part of it,
Yeah,
I
these
think.
are
Right.
definitely things we need to make
Yeah.
sure we're planning for as we build this.
Okay, sorry to digress, but I
that's fine.
thought it was a worthwhile
Well, the
question.
economy's not always going to be there, the money may not always be there, but there's always going to be people looking for skill sets and jobs, and it helps the community as well, so.
The last piece is just our Governor STEM Academy. I say just, it's our Governor STEM Academy programs that constitute, it's constituted out of mass comm, engineering, mechatronics, and motorsports. So that's all housed there as well. So I'm going to probably spend a little bit more time on this first slide because each of the successive slides is formatted similarly with similar information per program. And so I'll spend some time at describing what's on here, and then as we go to the following slides, hopefully it'll make sense. If there's questions, please ask. But with automotive, and I'll go alphabetical. I did my best to make this alphabetical. This is our current programming. At Burton Center, we have a 3-year sequential program with automotive service technology. The first choice applications data, the first number, 53, is the first choice applicants. So those are the students that are writing down on their application, I want to take automotive service or, whatever program we're talking about. That first number is, I want that as my top choice. And 116, that parentheses number, is the number of students that put it down on their form on the application. So while that's not as strong a number
As a first, second, or third choice.
Yeah.
That
First,
parentheses
second,
number,
third.
yeah.
And while that might not be as strong, it's still an indicator of how many students have that in the back of their mind. Okay, if I don't get it first choice, I might take it second choice if I don't get my first choice option. So it was important to put that in there. And then the slot number, some are hyphenated because there's going to be a range, and sometimes it'll be an exact number. Often, in many of our programs, they are OSHA capped, and you've heard that before, where we have, like in welding, you can only have 20 students in there because there are OSHA caps, and we have to hold to that. So that number is an estimation Mr. Kish and I have talked about, normally how many students we might be able to accept into the program on a first-year program basis. So not in its entirety, because that last number, program total of 60, that's the total number of seats that are in the program. So that would include first, second, and third year kids in the program. Does that?
How many are you accepting? 20 kids? 30,
Between 20 and
25?
25.
20, 25,
Yes,
okay.
Yep. And so the salary examples, you'll see this on each slide. This was fresh as of Friday. Mr. Jones and I worked on Indeed you've heard the website, looking at local data, examples of jobs that are available, and thought it would be good to have some idea of what a student could walk out and apply for and/or work towards. Some of the examples we'll have in later slides. There might be something, obviously, they're not going to walk out and be a lawyer right away, but that's something down the pipeline. And that's an extreme example, but in this case, these are two local automotive workshops and examples of what is posted online, and I just thought it'd be interesting to see what students can do coming out. And then the
Jason,
Yeah.
does it, once they're ASE certified, do they get that money? They have to be certified to get those rings?
a lot of, yeah, those credentials are very important in the automotive industry. And so when they come out with student certifications, they still have a little bit of work. They can take those with them and then do a little bit of work once they graduate and turn those into not student certifications, but turn them into a real, like, industry specific credentials. So, yeah, there's 10 of them. I mean, if you have 10 in industry, once you graduate, you're considered a master mechanic. So there's a lot of opportunity for our students to, and we have students that finish 8 to 10.
I don't want to get off topic here, but one thing that comes to mind, being an automotive guy myself, when these guys come out, like you bring a good point, are we preparing them for ASE? Are they able to get that? But something else too is, technology is always changing. The tools that are being used is always changing. So when we're looking at this cost of project, who are we looking at in terms of making sure we have the proper equipment? Like we talked about welding earlier,
Sure.
or we're talking about auto service, because obviously, like I said, technology changes. I think ideally, a student should be able to walk out of our technical center and into a body shop, for example, or a mechanic shop, and use the same tools that they were taught on,
Yep.
or something similar,
Something
very
similar.
close.
Absolutely.
So we need to make sure that we are getting the right information, and I guess I don't know what we would.
You want to explain, like, how do we go about determining that?
Sure, yeah, so with our program, and this is a current program, so we've already built the repertoire of equipment that we use, but then using our program advisories, staying up to date with what industry demands.
So explain again, who's on that program?
Yeah, who's the
So
advisor?
industry reps primarily, and that's where we're going to hear.
Now, are we going to listen our instructors as well? Because I know that a lot of them
Oh,
are. I
absolutely.
mean, they're the ones teaching it, so
Well,
I
they're
know
the
that
one-
they should
Yes,
be responsible for keeping up with the changes.
absolutely.
In
Well, not only, Mr. Hoback's our automotive instructor, and he is mandated to have, for NATEF certification, which our shop is NATEF certified, to maintain that, he has to maintain a certain amount of professional development each year too. So we're constantly sending him to, special events. I think he went to North Carolina this past year, to get that industry update and make
Right.
sure he's staying up on that. So those program advisories are run by the instructor. So the instructor pulls people in and is able to coordinate that effort of communication.
Okay, I think it's important. I was actually,
Absolutely.
I visited a friend of mine who owns a body shop, a collision
Okay.
center, and I was talking to him about it today, and we took it in high school. He's like, it's way different than what we were doing in high school now. So that kind of just rung a bell with me to
You
make
gotta-
sure that
Paint shop, you gotta have the paint, you gotta be
everything's so different
clean.
now. He was
It's-
showing me
it's-
some of
and
the.
paint's expensive now.
Well, he's showing me some of the equipment, the frame machine and the different things, and, we don't want to be teaching kids on 70s technology.
Well, I've got some good news on that front with collision repair, and how we're working with industry to, I'll get to that one.
Sure, I didn't want to
That's
branch
a
us
great
off, but it's just something that was in my mind.
Yeah.
Can you answer, so this is current, where are we going in our new center? Are we able are we capped at 60 students?
Yes, with
We are,
automotive.
okay, so per OSHA.
Per OSHA,
Okay.
yes.
So that's not expanding, unfortunately, so you're not gonna be able to meet more needs of students.
Well,
Or we're able to meet our students much better because we're having a modern facility.
Sure,
to
yeah, and I
Charles's
don't mean
point.
to-
Right.
yeah.
I mean,
So-
but I think it's important, right, just in terms of just the space that they're gonna
So
have.
even if you flip-flopped mornings, like you had a morning program and an afternoon program, I'm just asking for the general public, you still can't add more students?
No. Now, going back to collision repair, and I have a slide on that, but I think it's a really good example. We feel like with automotive service technology, students applying to that program, we're gonna have 60 slots open in collision repair, adding that new program. We're gonna
they
be
could-
pulling from there's gonna be significant crossover.
Crossover.
Now, maybe not identical, but we're gonna get a lot of those kids that are interested in auto service to be able to go into collision repair, and I think that'll slake the thirst in
Yeah.
that way, if you will.
You know, it's interesting, the state probably should change those caps, because we need, I mean, right now, my car is still at Blue Ridge Tire, and it's not gonna be done, they're down to one technician.
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't understand who writes these
Well-
rules, but.
OSHA's federal, though.
It's
It's
OSHA,
federal?
federal, it's safety,
Okay.
it's all that safety stuff.
Okay.
And it's very education related, as far as how many students can be, it's that ratio. And yeah,
Anyway.
it is
neither
frustrating
here nor there.
sometimes.
Do more of the student certifications give them more in that higher range? More than 45, 41, that's
up
not
to
a,
the- I'd
that's
have
not a
to
lot of money.
Defer to the companies, on what they would do there.
Okay.
They might give them a bump up, or they might bring them all in at the same level. Yeah.
Jason, how often do the program advisory committee members meet?
At least
They're expected to have twice a year.
Twice a year.
Once in first semester and once by the end of second semester.
That's for each program, that's over and
Yes.
above the general advisory committee, right?
Right.
So with that being said, is there any way that we could get more students and just operate an additional class? For a program, like you're saying, like, let's say automotive service, for example, and you have 150 kids apply, and you're only able to put in, how many, is it 53?
Well, that's how many chose that as the number one choice last year.
60 total, so,
20 a year.
yeah, 20.
So if you wanted to do more than 20 a year, you'd have to run an additional class outside of that. Is there
Right.
any way that we can do that with?
In the schedule, you're
In the schedule?
That's what I was asking.
Is there
Not
any
the
way
way-
around it?
Not the way it's worked, as far as transportation, we've got major constraints as far as transportation from 5 high schools. Right now, we run, and then also the constraint of teacher schedule. This teacher can only teach 6 blocks out of 8. I mean, that's what teachers have, that's a normal load.
And our super blocks constitute two out of those 6, so.
So it would require essentially more teachers, but would it require more square footage per se?
Yeah, yeah,
Because there's no way you can run two at the same time.
right, cram more into the same.
So an
space.
average classroom a day in, say, automotive service every day, there's somebody there,
Oh, yeah.
With the exception of the 8A afternoon super
Well, yeah.
block.
and there's nothing you could do in that time frame.
It would just necessitate paying the teachers to teach 8 blocks out of 8. It would also necessitate transportation.
I'm just looking at if we're
Yeah.
talking about building all this square footage, but we can't put any more students, we can't get any more certifications, we're not getting more product for the dollar.
Right, right.
But yet we're putting in all this square footage. And I understand that our square footage now is not where it needs to be.
Right.
And all
I think
that,
also
but-
keep in mind his point, you are also expanding the additional, you're adding programs too.
Well, that's where
Right.
I was gonna go, that's for this program.
Right.
But the other programs, I think. we
Well, and I
are.
think, yeah, as long as we keep going down the pike, we're going to see how many more programs and how many people
Yeah.
put in. It's saddening to me that,
agree.
only 60 kids out of 116 can get their number one choices, or something that we can do to kind of, and I know this waxes and wanes. This may be popular today, it may not be popular 2 years from now, it could be something totally different. But if there's ways that we can try to get more product, more students, more certifications, it's just,
Well, to your point, Brent, could we run a second bus? Because there's other centers that have a morning bus and an afternoon bus, and they hire another teacher. Or could you just say the students have to get themselves there? I mean,
There's,
right,
I mean, there's
If we've
ways.
got
that is the transportation dilemma. But again, the significant cost would be
Staff,
Human
Staffing.
resources, yeah.
but we'll have the infrastructure, I guess, it'd just be more the staffing piece to that.
and can you find the staff for that?
Well, Are they gonna be able to teach
That's our
that?
continual
That would
challenge.
take out the teachers' planning periods, and those are valuable times for the teachers to be able to maintain their shops, and do the planning, the lesson planning that's needed.
Can you hire part-time?
It's,
We could. I think it's hard enough to hire highly qualified
hard to
staff for
find,
full-time positions.
hard to find those
Try to pull
teachers.
people in. It is, it's so
because
hard.
Well, it's such a specialized niche.
and
You
they
can't
make,
have somebody.
they're making more money at somewhere else.
Right, right.
That's the challenge right there is, can you pay them what they can get in the industry? And that's the hard, that's the hard piece.
No, the biggest thing, I just want to make sure that we're giving as much opportunity as we can for every kid.
Absolutely.
I agree with you, Brent.
And
I think
that's,
we should really try to explore this and figure out if there's another
well, and if
way
we,
that we can.
and if we can get this adult ed thing going, I mean, that could be a source of revenue to kind of help hire the additional staff. I mean,
I think all the questions you're raising just drives home the point, this center serves 5 high schools. So when we talk about, well, gosh, why are we so entrenched in the idea that we want this for mostly Roanoke County students versus bringing in all these other folks? We have, our first obligation is to our students, and we have plenty of students who are wanting to get into our program, so.
So again, I'll go back real quick. Under the first choice applications, that first number is first choice applicants. The parentheses number is the number of students who put it on their application first, second, or third choice. So now each slide will be a different program, but similar setup. So building trades has incorporated 4 parts of the building trades industry, and we've recently been able to double the size of this. We went through a discussion with business and industry, and we've got a lot of students interested in it. We know the industry demand is there, and we have 120 possible seats for building trades opened up. And this is an example under salary examples. Construction laborer is just you could walk out of high school and be a construction laborer. You're going to be running, materials to the guys doing the skilled work, et cetera. So most of our students are going to come out with some skills to employ. Their next step, they might have to start as a construction laborer briefly, but as soon as they prove their mettle, they might be able to move up into a team lead or something like that. And that was an example of a salary there. We offer the certification, offering it now, the NCCER core. And that's the general core curriculum under that industry recognized credential.
Where was HVAC?
HVAC's coming,
Alphabetical.
They're in alphabetical order.
Alphabetical.
but they're down a little ways.
That's a
yeah.
new program.
Yeah, under new program.
Easy, Mike, easy.
Mike's anxious.
like,
All right.
having air conditioning.
You gotta have that. When you do capacitors.
Computer information technology is under the IT career cluster, 2-year program. We have opportunity for 60 students in that program and do a pretty good job of getting those students through that. They have ample certifications to achieve and have, I know our instructor there, Mr. French, likes touting, his student that went straight to Carillion with this CompTIA A+ certification and was employed and making a good salary. So they can walk out of this program. This is pretty much computer repair. So it's not necessarily a programming. We have that elsewhere, but this is a computer repair. I will also say, we'll come up on a later slide, networking is tied with this closely. And the same teacher teaches it. Networking is almost considered a 3rd year of this. It's kind of a specialized niche, but it has its own certification, so it has its separate slide and has its separate application pool. Anything you want to add there? Yeah. All right, cosmetology, everybody knows cosmetology, and it's probably one of our most sought-after programs, and you might say, well, why don't you, if the kids want to take it, why don't we triple the size of it? Well, we feel like we've got a good balance in Roanoke County. It's sought after, no doubt, but we also understand the industry demand is not there to be cranking out 60 cosmetologists a year. We want to be able to offer this to our students. Our students get valuable certifications and are able to take advantage of that. We have a great teacher that just came in for a retiree of, I think, 30-plus years.
And a former cosmetology
And
student through the
Oh,
program.
yeah, she was a former cosmetology student from our program. And sometimes the salary, that people say, well, sometimes you see lower salaries for hairstylists or cosmetologists, but on Indeed, this is what was in there, 26,000 a year plus tips plus incentives. I think the incentives were like up to 11,000 a year. So you start getting up into some pretty good neighborhood. And if you're going to be a full-time hairstylist at Southeast Salons, you make 45 to 60,000 a year, which I didn't know I'd see that kind of number, but that's a really good number in my mind. So especially if you're coming out with the Cosmetology State Board license, that is the thing. It's not a tamed down version of it. We have a very tight hour schedule that the students need to meet to be able to get through this program, according to the Virginia State Board. Criminal justice is our only offering in Roanoke County, I think, in the law, public safety, corrections, and security sector. It's a 3-year sequential program. It is dual enrolled with Virginia Western Community College. It's a highly sought-after program, and students use this as a launching point into a pretty wide array of career possibilities. And we did a recent survey of some recent graduates, more recent graduates, just to make sure we were looking at it right. And we were able to reach out to about 34 students, and 17 of them came back with an array of industry within criminal justice that they are pursuing. And one is currently employed in the city as a sheriff's deputy. I think they can hire a little bit earlier than Roanoke County can, if I'm not mistaken. I don't
It's
know.
up to the sheriff, yeah, they can hire
Is
at
it?
18.
Okay, all right, which, yeah. So there's the one student. Then we had 16 that are pursuing careers in fields via furthering their education. So this is definitely more of an academic track, similar to, say, our engineering center or mass comm center, where these students use this to explore and look into the field of criminal justice, but there are a wide array of occupations, and I'll just list a handful that the students mentioned, the alumni mentioned: social work, legal communications, psychology, and criminal justice. I guess that was their major. Law school, several alum came back and mentioned cybersecurity with a minor in criminology, forensic crime lab work, human trafficking. They were pursuing with the Office of Homeland Security or FBI, criminology, paralegal work. So it's not just a police officer prep program. It really is an opportunity for them to explore and use to look into a wide array of occupations within the criminal justice field. So the salary range, it's all over the place. I mean, depending on what you want to look at. These were just available on Indeed. As far as a certification, they don't come out with a specific industry cert that gets them, to be a police officer sooner or something like that. But again, this is more in the line of furthering their, they're going to have to further their education, but it really helps them get a launching point.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah,
So,
yep.
when we were touring, I think some of this stuff came up, especially with Brent's experience.
Mm-hmm.
I went ahead and I reached out to Chief Griffith in the Roanoke County and asked him what we could do as a CTE, building a future CTE, what we could do to serve them, and what his thoughts were. And, obviously, we don't have fire and rescue, and we already have a burn house, and it's very expensive, and they train and they take people right into the academy, but they do that at 21 in Roanoke County versus other localities do 18, and they're not going to change that. But what he landed on, I think it's a good suggestion to kind of beef this up a little bit, is a public safety pathway where we could incorporate kids who could come out and have a 911 operator, first responder, well, we already have
EMT would be good.
but create an overlap of these programs to give them exposure. And he said he would be willing to work with us. And it would be like a junior firefighter program where they would get exposure to ladders, equipment, the truck, and it could help foster exposure for these students to then maybe look into firefighting. Now, and he said at Back Creek Fire Station, they could do something there with volunteer work too.
Okay.
So I thought, I was looking into it, and I just thought that might be an interesting way to beef up that program.
Yeah.
And it seems like all throughout the United States, people are becoming almost dual certified. You have firefighters that are paramedics, that are first responders, that are also in law. So they're kind of bringing these
Intertwined.
spheres together
Yeah.
to serve the public in a broader sense. So anyway, I did
You
talk
look
with
into
him.
that,
If you want to
yeah.
reach out to him,
Okay.
Chief, he was fantastic, and we really had a great conversation. And he said there's, the burn house and everything else, it's not going to be that.
Yeah.
But at least to get those kids exposure
Sure.
I think so, it would be considered a public safety pathway.
Pathway. And Mr. Kish has got some good ideas about how to group some of those programs. Like you mentioned EMT, kind of having proximity to each other so that you can incorporate, and have overlap between programs. And we'll reach out to Chief Griffith. I know his predecessor, Chief Simon, helped us set up the EMT program.
Oh, yeah, he
And
told me
so
that.
they've been very instrumental. That department has been helpful with us.
He was
setting that up.
excited about it. He thought that would be a really great avenue for us, just to
Okay.
give them some exposure.
Yeah.
Because they are always searching, and he said, Salem's searching, everyone is searching. Roanoke County happens to be in some good shape.
In good shape.
But he said he really thought it would serve the public. And right now, we know that these people are hard to find.
Yep. Moving to the next slide, culinary arts. This is in the hospitality and tourism, is one of the hot topics here in the region as far as growth and industry growth. You've seen the, expansion of the outdoor scene and just everything going on in that arena. The hospitality and tourism arena is growing. The culinary arts is something that we have a very an experienced chef now in place, and we have strong student interest. I haven't eaten at Bobby's Hot and Cheesy, but that's down there at Towers. Is it good? Okay, well, you can be a line cook there for $36,000 to $40,000 a year. And the chef de cuisine at Shenandoah Club was 60 to 70. So there's a couple opportunities. I know our students get good experience. Our current facility is woefully inadequate. You've been through that kitchen. And I think with the new facility, we can really get these kids, not just inside the school, but, we saw a good example up at Massanutten Tech Center of how they reach out to the public, kind of utilize some outreach there and have some actually space for folks coming on campus and things like that. There's just ingenuitive ways to have those students be able to apply what they're learning. And then they earn the Serve Safe Manager credential that's industry recognized, very much so.
How many kids are we turning away for that? 80?
Turning away, well, 30 slots, it'd be, 50, 54?
54 by that math, yeah.
Yep, so, yeah.
And that-
That's gonna be a big, that's good, I mean, a kitchen's gonna be expensive to outfit, and,
Okay.
Well, but-
The higher ed's got,
they've got
Agreed.
one too, through
and that was
Claude Moore.
partly funded by 118 West.
Oh, well,
He was the
Oh,
one
okay.
that ran that passed away.
That's another area, though, if you look at the current facilities and what will be, I mean, talking about matching what,
The
real,
need is.
it's gonna be a game changer.
yeah.
Really excited
Yeah.
about that.
Yep. Early childhood education is next, and this is a very sought-after program by the students, and is one of, the same teacher teaches early childhood education and teaching internships, so she has a full course load there. Early childhood education, there's 2 sections, and it's capped. You'd think, well, welding's capped, mechatronics, robotics is capped, automotive is capped. Well, so is early childhood education. It's capped at 20 by OSHA. So we can take 40 students in that program total. And this gets students in that education and training pathway, gets them thinking not only about early childhood, but also we have evidence from our own HR department. We reached out and found out that we have 16 employees that have been through either early childhood education or teaching internship program, currently employed here in Roanoke County. I don't know what it is in Botetourt and Salem, how many of our students have gone off and are teaching there, but the early childhood education program is very sought after. As you can see, the 61 students, first choice applicants. And this was mentioned last week at our statewide CTE conference by the director of CTE for the state. And it was actually mentioned specifically as one of those, executive directive number 3 from the governor last year. He pointed me to that there is a distinct need, and we all know, I mean, we're fortunate in Roanoke County to be able to fill all, super close to all our positions, but we are kind of an anomaly. The teaching profession, have a hard time finding teachers, not just in early childhood, but elementary and secondary and in CTE. So
it's hard to get that certification, and if you've got it coming out, being a partner in
Yeah.
a daycare, Country Vera, before we sold it, it was very difficult. And I was on that committee, and it was hard, and you couldn't, they were constantly looking for students that, had some kind of certification, and they could walk in, ready, not just, we'll take anybody.
Well, the early childhood education piece, it's not a high paying, that was another piece that was mentioned last week at the conference is, DOE has often said, it needs to be high wage, high demand. Well, there's an understanding now that not everything that is a high demand is going to be high wage. There needs to be opportunity afforded people to be able to go into these fields, even though it might not be top tier salaries. You can see there 28 to 38 to 36,000 as a preschool teacher at Step Incorporated. It's not top tier, but it is such a dire need, not just for employment, but for people who are employed who need people to watch their kids. So there's just so much that goes on with the education and training process that students need to be exposed to. And we do have ample, we could actually expand that program if we wanted to, but I think we're at a good place of where it's at.
Can I ask you a couple questions
Yep,
about that?
yep.
So the program's total is 40, and what are the hours that program, our current program runs? Is that 7 to 8 to 12, 1, what is
I'd
it?
have to,
Yeah, so the morning class runs from 7:30 to 10:50, and then the afternoon class is 12:25 to 2:50.
Okay, so there are 2 parts to it. Okay, so am I looking at all, researching some of these programs and stuff? I thought it was interesting that Isle of Wight, and I talked to Dr. Nicely about this. They actually have this program called Little Sprouts, and they service the students of the teachers. So they essentially offer a daycare for teachers at a hugely reduced cost. I mean, it's $5,500 from 7 to 4:30. I don't think you can find daycare anywhere. And so it's a win-win because the teachers, students are given daycare, and then the students of the county are able to learn in that environment. So I don't know if that's something that we can explore. I know right now we use our TAP kids and our what are the other, where the
Tap Head
kids come
Start.
from? Yeah. The Head Start kids, but,
So you have 3 different things,
Yeah.
at play here. I mean, what he's talking about here is the class for our students, to train these to. So coincidentally, right, for the past 20, 30 years, at the Burton Center, there's been space there rented to TAP to run a Head Start program on site, which they, supply their own appliances, they actually supply their own playground, they maintain the playground and so forth. Because it's on site, those students have the opportunity, to do their internship on site. But it's really two separate things.
separate
You know, This
entities?
is the class, and
Okay.
it just so happens that at the Burton Center, again, longstanding, there's been a TAP Head Start, preschool program, which has nothing to do with Roanoke County, other than the fact that we rent them their space. So, then separately, because you asked about the Isle of Wight, and Sharon Shepherd's our preschool guru in special ed. She's reached out to them, hasn't heard back from them.
Okay.
But we did look at their website to kind of see what that looked like, and she agreed with me. It looked exactly like what we currently do in all of our preschool programs through our VPI program. So basically, and you might be able to speak to this.
Our preschool programs serve kids with disabilities, students on the Virginia Preschool Initiative Grant, and also employees can enroll their children.
So,
in our
because on the
preschool
website, they
programs.
call it reverse inclusion, and that's really the purpose of that VPI program. So and I don't want to put you on the spot, I have no idea how many current employees we serve in those slots, but that's basically,
I don't know the exact number, I could get it for you, but it's always been popular it makes it very easy for parents to be able to put their kids
yeah.
in.
Well, we'll follow up with that just to make sure that that's the same thing, and so we can kind of compare apples to apples. But in looking at it, it looks like what we do, and we're able to offer that. How many elementaries have preschool programs?
All of our elementaries have preschool programs, and many have multiple programs.
So with this program that you currently have, though, you're saying there are two separate programs?
No,
This is the class.
This is
The
the class
class.
with all students. Yeah.
And so the students sometimes have an opportunity to go over and work with the kids that are on site, but they also go out to other daycare facilities.
Okay.
Around, in ideally closer proximity to Burton. So they're not just at one place the entire time.
It's
Okay.
not mandatory that we have that TAP Head Start necessarily right on campus. That's a very nice thing for our students to be able to walk right down the hall.
And they had that hands-on. They would go over to schools.
They go elsewhere, though. This is
Correct.
just one
Okay, yeah,
location.
That's correct.
They
Right?
could, yeah.
So I guess in looking at the expenses of things, I wonder if our students are going outside already, what is this cost, the cost of this program? I'm not saying it doesn't have value, I'm not saying anything, I'm
Right,
just
right.
wondering, I'm thinking out loud, if we do want the latest and greatest equipment. Like Culpeper, for example, for their safety program, they're buying a $50,000 simulator, which is super cool and exciting to get those people interested in criminal justice programming, $50,000. So if we want to keep adding to our program, making it more and more exciting and attracting students, and I know this is a popular program, what is that going to cost us? If you had to guesstimate to buy a playground, $100,000 playground, make it ADA, you've got a separate curb, you've got a separate entrance, probably have to have different types of restrooms. Do we have a project estimate for?
Well, I think, the main cost would be the square footage.
The square footage.
Because, like Dr. Nicely said, the playground would be supplied by, if it was TAP Head Start. And
Would they
unless-
pay for
and
that
you're talking-
playground?
They
Yes.
pay.
They
for
would?
it, yes.
Okay.
So that's one of the advantages, their own equipment as far as a dishwasher. It would necessitate some special setup within that room, because within that room, there's like a kitchen area
Yes,
for them to be able to
oven,
prep their food for the little
refrigerator.
kids.
You have to have plumbing.
Yes,
Plumbing.
sink and those.
To me, what I hear you saying is that space, whatever we rent it for, I don't know what it is, but whatever it is it worth having that child care center there, or is it worth having the space for another program within?
I think that is the question. And again, just so in terms of having that discussion, that's one discussion about, do you carve out space, to allow, somebody like TAP Head Start to run a program there.
And they would rent it
That's-
too.
Right, that's one discussion. That's totally separate from the fact that we have run this class.
Yeah, this class
I
is,
don't want to confuse those two things.
Okay. So this class, though, is run
in
at
one
the-
classroom.
at the base schools, though? No.
Not early childhood education.
Okay, I see what you're saying. This,
But you
But
could
you're
still have
using
that
those
class without having those
Yes,
kids.
sir.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Because
That's
they
what-
can do their internships at other preschools.
right.
Yeah, and that's what they
I'm gonna
do.
get information on TAP Head Start when I give the other stuff to you, because we have a longstanding agreement with them and work really closely with them. So I'll get that information to you as well.
okay, I'm sorry to just sound like the blonde in the room here, but, so the kids, where are you getting the kids from? Are all the kids TAP kids, or are they?
No, no, no,
You
so-
talking about TAP Head Start or this?
Yeah, yeah. For
Two-
at
two
our
separate
current-
things.
Okay,
Yeah.
There's a preschool run by TAP Head Start. Okay, has nothing to do with this class, other than the fact that the students in this class do some of their internship in that preschool.
Okay.
These are
think
Roanoke
Cheryl's
County
asking,
high school students.
where do those kids come for the TAP program?
Oh, the ones that are currently on our facility? Okay, yeah, so
Yes.
those,
Thanks.
mostly the city of Salem and Roanoke City because it's kind of right in the middle. I believe last time I talked to Crystal Fernat, I think she said there were not any families served from Roanoke County currently on our site. But I think that's more location specific of where it is.
So it would be advantageous for us to have this program so that we could service the kids in that Hollins, Peters Creek area.
So our
If-
our VPI, the TAP Head Start has a certain criteria that kids have to meet to be part of that program. But
Oh.
all of our VPI programs that we have in their home school already have the same level of need. That's how we serve those kids in their home school. So all of our schools have kids that have a similar criteria to your TAP Head Start kiddos.
Well, and I don't think there's any way you'd be able to put a restriction on that. That's gonna be up to TAP as to who they
That's right.
send, so they're,
Yeah,
you're
But
just
the
kinda
point-
stuck.
The
Yeah.
point, and the point I would offer is that's a daycare for kids that aren't Roanoke County kids. And is that space and more valuable to the CTE center than it is as a
I think it's a
daycare?
legitimate question.
Because you could rent that space, they can rent that space anywhere.
Do we know how much square footage that
But-
we're using for it offhand?
Top of my head, I'd estimate
It's
2,000
classroom
square
size.
feet. It's a pretty
bigger than-
decently
it's a good
sized
size
space.
thing.
Right.
But that's just off the top of my head.
And
I
the-
can look that up if you'd
And the
like.
idea, not to be, I'm sorry, Brian, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking $400 a square foot, 2,000 square feet. And if we could use it for something like you're saying, that would benefit what we're trying to do here. And our goal is not to create a daycare
That's the
center.
question, right?
So they still have their lab schools, in essence, which are the classrooms, which are all throughout Roanoke County or other daycares.
They intern at other
They,
daycares.
right,
They-
We don't need
so we don't
But
need
not
that.
all those kids intern at the daycare.
No, there's
Those kids don't, the kids that are at Burton right now do not intern with our other preschool. You have an intern program and you have an
Right.
early childhood program.
correct.
So they would
Two
not.
separate.
Two separate
They
programs.
would not have those same benefits to be able to have the kids bus to a center to be able to have access to a preschool.
Right.
They would not be able to have that program without a preschool.
Yeah, I think the other way we could put it is if TAP Head Start wasn't currently at Burton, if that space didn't exist at all,
Sure.
could our current early childhood education students go somewhere else to get those experiences?
That's
The
the
answer is yes.
Okay,
The answer is yes. Does that help?
so yes,
Okay.
and so is it kind of like how marketing and some of our other classes that we have, that you were calling them in-house, right? The benefit of having, although you don't get as many certifications, let's say, for the mass communications program, the benefit is you're bringing kids to one central location with one expert teacher
Yep.
and all the equipment there. So it's cheaper. You can't have all these little satellites.
Right.
So the question that I would have is that a program that you can do at different schools? Do you need the square footage to be at Burton if there really is no lab? I guess is the question.
Well, I think that gets into whether you have enough
Staff
student
and
opportunities and staff. The staffing becomes the issue, being able to run it in all the schools.
So you've got one or two teachers here versus
Right.
7 or 8
Right.
elsewhere.
I think
Okay.
there's a serious compelling argument to say, that program, and other CTE centers across the state have this program in their CTE center.
Yeah.
That's Henrico, Chesapeake, what's that, York, I think, has the same thing. But my point is, I think there's compelling reason to keep that program at the CTE center, but having that program at the CTE center does not mean you have to also build additional space in order to house that preschool.
Well, I definitely think that's something we need to look at, because we went through the list and cut square footage out of every program when we were trying to
And
get to that
especially
dollar.
things like flexible spaces that we
Right.
need to build in for future program
Right.
development. And not to be, I mean, and to be clear, we've heard from TAP Head Start already. I've already scheduled a meeting actually with them. I mean, is there a need in the north side Burlington area?
Sure there is.
High-quality child care for students on the poverty level? And they'll tell you absolutely. So the change in location would likely serve more Roanoke County students. But I think that's also somewhat of a business decision we have to make here in terms of the
No,
square
every, yeah,
footage that we have.
yeah, every kid, I mean, we love every kid, we want every kid to
That's
have
right.
opportunity, but
Because maybe they can rent a space really close to the CTE center and
Right.
still be able to.
Sure,
that's more up to TAP than it is us.
that's right.
That's right, yeah. Okay, and so therefore, if it's just a space that we're allocating towards that program, because it's cheaper to have everybody come to that one site versus hire outside teachers, it's more economical. You don't need a separate curb entrance, you don't need a separate
That's right,
cafeteria,
correct.
you don't need a separate
You're talking about a
playground.
classroom.
Because it's classroom.
We're talking about a classroom versus a
Exactly.
classroom
Okay.
plus a whole preschool
That's
area.
exactly what I needed to get to in this discussion, so
Good.
cleared that up, that makes
Okay.
sense. Okay.
Very good. And there is a state-sponsored push for the CDA certification. We've offered that in the past. I think we've had, it's a very rigorous certification. Not that we're averse to rigorous certifications, but that's something that we might need to relook at and see if we can reincorporate. And that Governor's Executive Director number 3 is not a certification. That is just a note so that I talk about it. Emergency medical technician, very proud of the partnership. This was our first health and medical science program in the county back in 2016. Already referenced that with Chief Simon and Roanoke County Fire and Rescue, along with also Claude Moore Scholars and Blue Ridge Partnership for Health Science Careers. There's a lot of momentum with Carillion kind of behind it all in our area. A push on the health science front. So this is a very valuable program, have a great instructor, have a lot of student interest, great examples of salaries, and a great credential that comes out of this program with the National Registry for EMT. Of course, the next step, I listed paramedic there because once you're an EMT, that kind of the next step in that field is paramedic training, and that's what they probably move into. But great partnership with Radford University Carillion. We fall under their umbrella. We do pay, we being Roanoke County Public Schools, do pay for the instructor, kind of as subcontracted out. But along with that, we fall under their jurisdiction, we fall under their credentialing and all that type of thing for the program. So that is very valuable to Roanoke County Public Schools and a great setup that we have there. Engineering is a 4-year program, part of our Governor's STEM Academy, and it includes math and science, and we have ample, it's very competitive to get into, very academic program. Some students that apply to that have to choose between going to Gov School and going to the Center for Engineering. The salary range, I just threw some engineering, we know full well they're not going to come out of high school with that, being an engineer, and but will further their education. And no specific, industry credentials that they're walking out with, other than the workplace readiness skills for the Commonwealth,
But again,
every
It's
CTE.
a center that you're bringing the students together for a
Yes.
specific professor, so it makes more sense economically.
It's very specialized.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really
very,
hard to
very
find a
special.
qualified teacher. to-
Exactly.
Yep. Game design and programming falls under IT. That's comes under the programming specific. This is where our students can really get good training on programming. Good student, or got a great instructor, a lot of student interest, and the salary range. We know programming is a high need area in our society in general. And the students can come out with a Microsoft credential that isn't necessarily programming specific, but it is Microsoft. I think it is good to add to their resume. MassCom, another 4-year center, of course, part of our Governor's STEM Academy. It's one of the few, if not the only one, in the Arts, AV, Technology, and Communications cluster. Have ample student interest in that. Retention in this program is almost an anomaly. I mean, we have students that stay in that program all 4 years, starting as a freshman. And the staff does a great job of getting those kids trained. And we've gone through a little morph in how we go about that, kind of speaking to how we don't stay static at Burton. We change, we listen to industry, we see what's going on. We know social media has a much bigger presence now in the mass communications field as opposed to print media. Not that it's gone completely away, but we've been able to morph some of that and rearrange. So this is another one that doesn't have a distinct credential that students come out with, but obviously, and our teacher could come speak to you for days, I think, on where all his kids have gone and what they're doing in the industry and what great schools they're going to. It's an impressive program. Mechatronics Robotics is the manufacturing, part of the manufacturing. Welding falls under this as well, but Mechatronics Robotics is one of those that we've changed with the times. We almost had to close this program years ago when I think I was assistant principal or principal at that point over at Burton, and we had so few kids wanting to go into this because it was just straight machining. It was a dark, dingy machine shop. And so we had to kind of think outside the box, change, and we changed it to Mechatronics Robotics. We've got a great instructor there. Student interest is back up, and students can come out being a machinist. We listened to business and industry. They said there were manufacturers that said we need machinists. Well, there were also manufacturers that, and we knew we had to kind of start venturing into the mechatronics arena where we just, Carl and I just toured Eldor the other day. I don't know if y'all have if you ever get a chance to go out there and see that auto parts manufacturer. It's Italian. A big old facility out there at Greenfield, very much automated, and they need engineers to be able to repair the machinery that is doing the manufacturing, right? So that's what we want our students to be able to be machinists if they want to do that angle, but also go into that automation arena as well. And our students are trained in NIMS. NIMS is a very much recognized industry credential, and fortunate to have Mr. Burns focus kids on that. Motorsports, we talked about that earlier, really is, it's part of our Governor's STEM Academy. It's a small program. We only take 20 students in that program because Mr. Overfelt teaches 2 sections of welding. He teaches 1 section of motorsports.
Three different levels, yeah.
Yeah, and 3 different levels within that 20 kids. So those students, it's high interest, offers students the opportunity. You've seen the engine building teams and the scholarships that they are able to achieve and the great competitions they're able to go see industry in Indianapolis and other places where they compete. So that's part of this program, and Mr. Overfelt does a great job. Come out with AWS qualifications if the student wants those, but a lot of employers, we hear about Alltech out there in Botetourt. They're snapping up every welder they can find. They're growing by leaps and bounds. That's just one company. Botetourt, I think, has a welding program. They're adding another section to their welding program out there because of how many welders.
Is Altech interested in partnering with us? Are you working on that?
We're going to pursue that, and that's part of the work that Carl and I are doing, is reaching out to industry to make sure that we're tapping into these companies that want to partner in those ways.
Maybe give us some old equipment
Or new.
or new.
We went out
Is
there
this
and toured
some-
their facility before. It's pretty impressive.
Is this something we may need more staff for?
Well,
Because, he's limited, obviously, to,
So
That's
we've got to
something.
balance that with the square footage and the specialized equipment, because it would take another chunk of space to do that.
See, but I think I'd rather use that space for something like that, where we know our kids are coming out,
there's an industry
and
need.
there's industry needs, and you gotta,
And specialized instructor, you have to have that high qualified instructor to be able to teach it as well. So,
Haven't we actually had some of our kids, I'm just making this up, probably go out there and win their welding competitions or something?
Yep.
well, we just had a success star out of Mr. Overfelt's. I don't know if y'all have seen
I saw
Did you
that.
see
Yeah,
that?
Yes.
Working for Joe Gibbs, I
Yep.
think.
Joe Gibbs Racing in
That's
NASCAR.
amazing.
Yep.
so per OSHA, you're capped at 20?
20 in a welding
So
shop.
you would need another teacher,
Another shop.
another
We'd have
And
shop.
to
that-
figure out
And this
square
is
footage.
probably our most expensive shop. Probably automotive service, welding, and mechatronics robotics are going to be our 3 most expensive shops. And welding might top them. We'll see. We'll see when, we're going to get some estimates on that. But
I would just like to see us be able to think outside the box. If we hired a couple extra teachers, if we had it in our budget, had these kids, if they drive themselves or figure out a transportation system, to get them there to flip it, so we have an afternoon program.
Well, and-
If you've got the equipment, you have the facility, and there's a need, and there's a desire and a want, why not take care of that?
If I may, I might throw this out. You know, that block that Mr. Kish mentioned, that afternoon that's, you know, because of constraints on personnel, if a teacher, it would kind of be teacher dependent, but our teachers might be open to, you know, of course, they'd be paid more, but because we'd have to pay them for their planning outside of those hours, but that would be a more concise way of doing that, because you're already paying them, you know, benefits
Doesn't
and
Culpeper
everything
do
like
that?
So-
They do something with their scheduling so that that block in the middle is different, so because they have afternoon and morning sessions.
Say that-
At
who-
Culpeper,
At
it's-
Culpeper?
Yeah,
I
so I
mean, that's the
remember
same
her.
we do. That's what we do.
Well, it is disturbing, I mean, because you have 20 spots, 88 people, that's literally 4 times the amount of people.
Well, 27 first choice. 88 people that mentioned it. And this is just, remember, this is just motorsports. This is just this program. We also have accommodate more students in the welding arena in the welding program. And that's a later slide.
Okay.
So we have 20 kids in this program, we have 40 kids in the welding program.
Okay.
So we're meeting 60 kids.
Plus, once you add the collision repair, you're gonna be.
We're gonna be pulling from the same
Group of kids.
Similar demographic. so-
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Not demographic, similar pool. All right, keep moving, because, oh, man, I don't know what number I'm on, but people
Networking.
love talking about CTE, but, networking, the one,
Halfway.
I'll stop asking questions.
Chuck said halfway, we're
Cheryl,
halfway
somebody-
done.
oh, my goodness.
Someone might have
So we're
I've
gonna
got
keep
2
going.
minutes
Masking
before I
tape
have to
over.
go.
All right.
We needed it.
Networking
This
is a
the-
1 year, I think I mentioned, is kind of an extension of the CIT one, or the CIT program. Kind of a specialized niche for students to go into. It offers great certifications that CompTIA and Net Plus. And we don't have as strong the numbers in that, so that's one that we'll keep our finger on the pulse of. But again, it's kind of like a third year of just about anything. If you're taking 3 years of a foreign language, I mean, even, you know, there's some attrition that goes through, and these kids that would go into networking primarily come out of CIT 1 and 2 and are taught by the same instructor. Nursing Careers is a partnership with Carillion. Falls under health science, obviously, very popular program, have a wonderful teacher. This is one of the program where Carillion provides at no cost to the school division, the instructor. So we have 2 programs like that, and nursing is one. And that's how important Carillion deems this program, and they've done a great job, along with Claude Moore Scholars and Blue Ridge Partnership, to come along and support this program. We look forward to hopefully building this out and being able to offer adult ed in this area at night for maybe adults being able to go on to like LPN training or what have you. We need to work with industry on that. And the students come out with multiple certifications in this program as well. Teaching internship, we already talked pretty much about, that falls in the same line of ECE. The same teacher teaches early childhood and teaching internship. And we have ample numbers, ample interest. This is those students that really don't get the opportunity in a base school to be able to go into an intensive internship situation. And so these students are getting a good experience there out of Burton, and they go into elementary schools to do their internship. Welding, we just mentioned. Under manufacturing, we offer 40, that last number over there under first choice applications, program total of 40, so that's where the additional students, we do offer 40 seats there. Salary range we know is good, AWS qualifications, I'm gonna keep moving.
Yes.
Limited Rad Tech, that's the other program with Carillion that they provide the instructor, and actually, this is off-site right now. This is relocated. Notice the top of the slide. This is a relocated program because Carillion is housing this at Carillion Children's, and they have done so with the understanding that we're building a new center, that they want to move it to the new center when that happens, but they are providing the space. Claude Moore Scholars and Blue Ridge Partnership have been great. I think we had a $37,500 piece of equipment, a simulator for radiology. They provided, paid for. This is a great setup, and Carillion kind of dictates, because of the teacher situation, they kind of dictate, you don't see big numbers there under first choice. We definitely think more students will become interested as this becomes more known, but they also limit it to, they wanted to limit it to 18 slots this year. I think we have 15 in the program.
So they'll be
Total.
coming to our new center.
They'll be coming to our new center. And this would be one, I would say, let's build this flexible, because we don't know, Carillion really wants this right now. If they want to come in and say, well, hey, we're at the gills with radiologic technologists, we want to do medical assistant, let's set up that program. We should be able to flex that space.
Okay.
And be able to use it in a flexible way with the health sciences. We know health science is just humongous in this region.
So are they gonna provide all the equipment for this?
They don't need to.
They don't need to?
Carillion?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that,
I
really,
mean,
the
when it
big
moves to
piece.
the new center.
Oh, we'll have that big piece of machinery moved over.
Okay.
Yeah, that $37,500 piece of
So we're
equipment's
not,
coming
we're not
with it.
spending money on equipment that could be possibly not used in the future. It's their equipment. that they're
No,
doing.
actually, the radiology equipment is ours,
So how do we buy that?
through Claude Moore. They
Okay.
donated it. So it didn't cost us. Yeah,
Okay.
But they
But it
don't
is
want to keep it
ours.
at Carillion.
that's what we have been, we've been in talks with them.
Just
about
asking
that.
it
I mean,
for-
if they wanted to keep housing it, the only limitation there is, right now, we say the students have to be able to drive themselves. We're not providing bus transportation down to Carillion Children's. So that kind of limits which students can take advantage
Can
of it.
get there.
So,
See what will.
the Navy program, everybody knows this would be another one that's relocated from Williamsburg to the center. And that's under the government and public admin cluster. It'd be a 4-year program. We would hope we'd get above 100 because that would get us in the running. I think then we can apply for the Navy paying for half the program, or half the instructor cost.
For a JROTC program.
Yeah, if we were able to get that.
I think
to-
it will. I think it's going to be a brand-new facility, and people will be really excited to be there.
This is a great program, so
It's
I hope
great.
it does take off.
So it has its own specific criteria of how much square footage in the different areas, so that'll all be considered in the new build. Cybersecurity is not new to Roanoke County. We offer that. We're going through a flux right now, or a flux of trying to figure out how to get students and maintain student interest. What we're finding is that cybersecurity, we've got it out in the base high schools, but it's not running real well. And we feel like it's because it necessitates a specialized instructor. We have the specialized instructor located at Burton, Mr. Worf, and he currently teaches a virtual level 2 of cybersecurity. We'd like to bring level 1 to the center in person with Mr. Worf, get the students really up on that first year, and then possibly run the second year still virtual, but with students that he's already built a relationship with. So we feel like that's going to be important, and I think we saw a great example of that. I think it was Massanutten Tech Center that has a really cool site.
Oh, that room was incredible.
Kind of a war room.
It was a war room, yeah.
All right, so then the new programming that we are putting in the center, I just want to mention the decision-making variables, the constraints, the things we're up against, things that we look at in order to put in the programming. First of all is industry demand. If there's no industry demand, we shouldn't have the program, be proposing a new program. And if we can't get students interested, we shouldn't put the program in because it's not going to run. And a matter of fact, up at Culpeper, they had that very situation their first year.
Yeah.
They had I think.
Sanitation or something like that.
I think it
What
was a
called?
building management
Yeah,
class.
but it
I
was-
think it was
which
building
was-
management. And they were going through a transition. First year, they realized they didn't have student interest, so they're turning it, I think they're gonna do like medical assistant or something, but you gotta have student interest. And so we poll students, we say, are you interested, would you take this class? And so we do that. We get VDOE approval. We go through a process there. VDOE demands that we submit a big ol' application. We fill out all the data and submit that, and they come back with either recommendations for altering that data or approval. And then it's approved for us to be able to run. We also look at instructor availability. We've already mentioned that. You know, finding a highly skilled, highly trained, highly credentialed person to be able to do that is one of the things we're up against. And I
And
feel
that's at a
like
national level as well.
it is.
Right.
Yeah, it's not unique
I
to
mean, at the
this.
conference you went to,
Yeah.
you
We're all singing the same song, just a little different way.
Mr. Kish, I'm watching the clock here, and I know you've got to go, so.
I apologize, I do have an obligation. If you all have any questions, just feel
Is
free
it a
to reach out.
volleyball game?
No, sir. Thank you.
No, Tim, I'm gonna go get my nails done.
Fire to
Remember
rocket.
that? Tim, you should stand up so everybody can see your shorts.
Oh, I've got to put my leg down.
Is that the last,
Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You all.
thanks,
is that
Chris.
your last
Take
slide?
care.
Close. I want to
yeah.
run through the 3 programs. I'm doing my best.
I didn't mean that sarcastically. I was serious. I had a couple questions. I just didn't want to pose them until he was done.
Well, you can pose them now.
No, go ahead.
Okay. And then startup and maintenance cost. Of course, that's something that we're working hard on and, you know, as far as equipment and what it takes to run the program. The school board's been very supportive of our CTE programs and our instructors do well.
And
They
that's
have-
something that concerns me a little bit is the maintenance cost. You know, this probably isn't gonna be my bag to deal with 10, 15 years from now, but we need to make sure that we're preparing out, you know, the replacement of equipment and making sure we're setting up.
Well, fortunately, we have, you know, with the Perkins Plan and the Perkins Grant, we have that federal money that we can use to help upkeep. And that's it's not a huge chunk in the grand scope of the county budget, but for us, it helps.
Okay.
And you all, the school board has been supportive with local monies. And we also have state equipment monies that we receive from the state. So
Okay.
as we add programs, I expect to see those numbers go up as well, because it should be proportional in some way.
Okay, that's good.
Have we always qualified for Perkins?
As far as I know, it's been, yeah. And I
we've
think
been on the
Perkins was
board.
back from the 70s.
That's a federal grant.
Since
Yeah, it's a
we've been
federal
on the
grant.
board, it's here.
Okay, so the new programming, I just want to touch on these. It's not been a secret. Collision repair and we mentioned it earlier in conjunction with automotive. It would offer 60 slots, so significantly expand the number of slots we would have available to students involved or interested in the automotive arena. This is collision repair. This is not a body shop. The industry that we're talking with that are super interested in putting this together wants a cutting-edge collision repair. And just like Mike said, I think you were Mr. Hudson, I'm sorry,
Mr. Ray.
Mr. Ray, that, I shouldn't.
Colors are going by the first name.
Sure you
So, the collision repair is cutting edge. It's high tech. Welders can't just go into a steel frame and run a bead all the way across because it's not all the same metals anymore. The explanation that was given to us was quite detailed, and I think we're going to have a cutting edge collision repair facility. You see the student interest line there. That when we surveyed students, 349 students. Now, this was a broad survey. We threw it out to CTE students across the division. How many generally would consider taking collision repair? 349 said they would be interested at one way, shape, or form. That doesn't mean, I definitely don't take from that we're going to have 349 first applicants. We're going to be pulling from a similar crossover from automotive, but that's my anticipation. Salary range is bonkers. You can make really good money, and there are examples there. And the ICAR and ASE certifications are industry recognized. Those are very potent. Dental assistant is another program we're looking at, and this gives us, Roanoke County Public Schools, a different vantage point in the health science arena, because our other 3 programs are kind of traditional, what you think of health science. Dental is kind of an offshoot of that. It still would be supported by Blue Ridge Partnership and Claude Moore, which is significant because they've got lots of money and they want to help get these things off the ground. And we would be able to offer 60 slots. Student interest was good, and you've got an opportunity to look at the salary range. Of course, dental assistants aren't top, they're the bottom of the tiered system there, but you have the hygienist as the next step. and be able to get a certified dental assistant with, again, we'd work with industry to see which credential would be most valuable for our students.
Who's
to,
offering
come
that
out.
here? Western?
Western offers, they offer dental, I think it's hygienist. But it's very restricted. It seems what we saw down there when we toured, it was a kind of a bottleneck because there were so many applicants to the program and it just kind of was constricted.
But they could come out of this program and go right to the.
Hopefully.
They're very expensive programs to run. I say that from the Virginia Western perspective, as being on their board. So, like if everybody goes to community college pays the same dollar amount in tuition, these programs are very expensive. So they do have, limited number of spaces, for those kind of programs for the same reason. So I think us adding that would be helpful.
And then orthodontics too, JC.
That's right. Thank you, Carl. The orthodontics we've heard is another avenue. It's kind of parallels dental. But as far as training in that arena, we've heard orthodontics has a lot of money involved, probably the wealthier of the two veins. And if we could work adult ed in with that and some of our student training, our students could come out with,
Interesting.
with some of
Dual
that.
certified or
Yep.
flip-flop. Okay, interesting.
We'll have to explore that further. HVAC, there you go. Heating, ventilation, air conditioning is the other,
And you got
kind of on the
cybersecurity.
building trade side of things. We know it's a big need. I think we have ample student interest. And we definitely have industry, I forgot to mention with collision, we have 16 letters of support from industry. With HVAC, we have 5 letters of support from industry to come in and be of help to us as we build this program. And I think we're making good progress on that front. This would be for another 60 students.
Is this
and-
only offered through certain, how do I say it, licensed? I mean, they offer courses, but it's on-the-job training, right? And then they go into classes.
For on which?
HVAC.
HVAC?
When they would, I know students, I talked to some about how they would go through the program,
Uh-huh.
and it's something to do with the union or something, isn't it?
I haven't, we haven't.
Yeah, there was something
that.
about that they were teaching them.
Okay. Well,
But that would be-
I do know, heating, ventilation, air conditioning gets into plumbing, electric, sheet metal. There's some specific skills in there, and I think it's a diverse enough program where students come out with some good skills. And I do think, with building trades, with a lot of these programs, employers are looking for apprentices. We're building that program as we speak, and more companies are wanting to come and support that program and involve students.
We need
And I
every
think
trade.
HVAC is one of, my son's doing an HVAC apprenticeship right
Nice.
now. And I think those types of opportunities, those work-based learning opportunities are very important. I want to mention diesel technology because we're hearing from industry that diesel technology and diesel technician work is the need is out the wazoo. And what the proposal would be is to add a separate bay in our automotive program to be able to accommodate students, advanced automotive service students that we have. If they've been in the program for, say, 2 years and they see that diesel is something they want to pursue, that we have a bay in this facility where we can do diesel specific, because there is a difference. Now, these outfits, like Lawrence Companies, they'll take automotive students because they've kind of got some of the basics down. But if we can get our students into that specialized diesel niche, our students will benefit from that. And this would not include, an additional instructor, wouldn't include significant, like a full-blown diesel program, another, 5,000 square feet. It would be an addition to the automotive and have that opportunity for our students. So I just wanted to mention that because that might be like competencies that we add to our automotive program. So it wouldn't be an application to the state and all that type of thing, but we can go ahead and teach that to our students. We just need space for that equipment. It's just different.
But
And
you
they
have
would-
to have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
They would donate, a lot of those would donate trucks and things for
think
them to
so.
work on,
Yeah.
Volvo and
Yeah.
some of those.
Yeah,
They're-
especially Volvo up
Mr.
there.
York and Mr. Sir both have some really good, we have monthly meetings to talk about progress, and so they're having some really rich conversations with some of the companies he's mentioned. There's the interest, I think, is definitely there. But you have to have a heavier duty lift.
I think
for
heavy
your
duty
diesel bay.
lift, different, you know, you have to have a diesel engine to work on, you've gotta have, yeah, and we've seen some good examples of that. Where did we see the cutaway diesel engine? Was that up at
That was at Botetourt.
Botetourt? Botetourt had a cutaway diesel engine, and what a teaching tool. Help
Well,
the
it's
kids
the-
understand how it works.
There's, yeah, I mean, diesel transports everything from locomotive to ship
Yep.
to the grocery store. Everything is transported by diesel, so it's a huge, and we have Carter Machinery here. A lot of their machinery are diesel. So it's very apparent that we should move forward with this.
And some of the talks we've had, they're talking about the, maybe not on the immediate horizon, but coming down the line is the electric. And I don't, some people talk like it's gonna be a viable force. So, and that's the big vehicle EV stuff, so.
I think one program at another school got one donated, electric car, and they were able to
Work on it.
start learning about the electric side.
Now, we do have a trainer for electric in our
Do
automotive
you?
program, so we were able to get a hold of that. Yeah, there's all kinds of opportunities in this arena, and I think if we can get kids into this, especially if it's a handful a year, industry will support this program, and I think they're pretty excited about it.
And Mr. Hoback's advisory committee, the chair is the CEO of Lawrence.
Of Lawrence
So that's the kind of
Companies.
people he has in that committee.
That's huge. Well, do we know how many square foot? Do we have an estimate on what we would need?
Well, actually, from what I've seen, and I don't know if I can talk about it. Hopefully I can talk about it. I mean, it's.
You're wide open.
That sounds like you are talking about it.
You sound- you sound like
it's
Tim
incorporated
Green.
Yeah, just
in
tell me, I'll-
Planned space program.
That we currently have?
Yes, sir.
It looks
Okay,
like.
so we
Is it-
already have this in what we have planned for the dollar amount that we have.
That's right. We're going to incorporate this in automotive.
So-
We're going to convert one of the bays to a diesel bay.
Now, this is not at the detriment of
Automotive.
automotive.
No, and that's what we just need to make sure of. I think even if we have to ask whoever ends up building the place to expand that out and make sure that we have that, I think that's important.
Well, and I think that's why these conversations are important in regards to what we were talking about with the TAP, as well as the radiology piece. And to touch on that, is there a benefit to bring that to Burton versus that space being utilized at Carillion so we can have more space for the things that we need?
And that's something I can re-ask and make sure we're very clear on whether Carillion's able to perpetually offer that space. That's just, I'll have to double check on that.
As long as
But-
somebody doesn't ask us to downsize.
That's where I'm at, is I don't want to downsize. I just want to make sure that we're not squeezing ourselves.
You want the space.
I want the
Yeah.
space, because we know that if we don't do it right the first time, we're going to be
Great
stuck with this for the next 30
Well, I'm even
years.
thinking, do we need 2 diesel bays? And so can kids go straight into diesel, or do you have to do the automotive piece first?
Well, the thought right now is you get some experience in automotive, and if that's something you want to
Kinda crosses
specialize
over.
in, you can spend, our instructor is versed in diesel enough to be able to get our students down that, but
But there's a prerequisite.
Yeah,
kind of almost like a prereq.
yeah, you get a basic with the automotive, and then you know
Right.
how they operate with combustion and the way they're operating with their cylinders and things, and then you go to diesel.
Yep.
You'd have that knowledge of how it would work. So I think that's
Good question.
important.
Yeah, I definitely
agree. I
think-
was thinking the same thing on the two. If you had the 2,000 extra square feet, what program would most benefit our kids and the workforce development of having that extra 2,000 square
Well,
feet?
I guess it's, you want to balance that with, do you want a flex area, or do you want to build that in purposefully to a specific program?
Well, don't we have some flex area already?
Most of that's been sort of carved out.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at it,
So I
though,
think if we're going to save space, that's what I would recommend.
That's what people need to understand. This is, it's, to Brent's point, it's not how we can downsize this. To me, it's how can we right-size it and get as much as we can get out of the money we're getting. And I hate, saying it in that, but the benefit to me will come back. We just heard the economic benefit in a meeting we had, or somebody had. What it'll come back to us in Roanoke, as Roanoke County taxpayers and citizens. So it's not what can we get rid of? It's what can we do to maximize our students' potential and our workforce development for future companies that will come here. Look at Wells Fargo. I give them credit. That's one of the best announcements, and I know certainly in the 8 years I've been here. But think about the needs and the skills that you just went through here that will benefit every one of those Wells Fargo employees. Cybersecurity, the IT, the computer repair. I mean, half of these, they can go, they'll be able to go right into a Wells Fargo job, maybe not the high end, but they're going to have a lot of entry level. And it's, man, this is what we need, not how we downsize. How do we right size?
And optimize, right?
Well, that's the thing, is optimizing the space, and I think that these are questions that we really probably should have you look into, is, and I love radiology, and in fact, we're doing that, so I'm not taking away from that.
I will definitely reach out to Carew.
I think that our population, I mean, the growth that we've had in the valley versus what we have in services and medical is somewhat scary. If you go to the hospital sometimes, I mean, they've got people out in the hallways of the ER for 24 hours.
It's
I mean,
true.
it's terrible. So we definitely need to be looking in that direction, but if they can continue to house that there and it's not such a negative for our students or us, then why not try to use that space?
I think it's a real positive for our students that can get there.
Right.
That's
Yeah, they
the
gotta
only thing we've got to
drive.
balance is the
Well, and that's something
transportation.
we can look at too. I mean, we can look at the expense of trying to hire an additional bus driver or whatever we need.
It's another good point. It's not, we can't do it. How can we do it?
That's right.
That's where I'm at with it.
It's
is
not what we
that's-
can't
that's a
do,
good
but
way
we
to
can
put
do.
There's another vein that I'm working on, I have started talks with, and that's the aviation side of things. And I think there's some positive developments on that side where, or indications that, we could offer aviation at a separate location, probably at the airport.
That's-
You know,
yeah,
that might not be possible, but that's something I'm willing to explore, and we can hopefully go down that road.
Well, they came
I
and
think that's
introduced-
another big need. The aviation industry is screaming for
Yeah.
mechanics
It
and
has to be,
pilots.
yeah. All of the regulations that they put in, like those instructors though, to find an instructor to do aviation, all the certifications that they make them have is almost shackling to a program like ours developing, from what I heard. So to go to the airport for that instruction is the best thing to do.
Well, I would hope so, and that might end up, because it's a regional airport, it might end up being a regional thing that we work on together, but.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the types of options. Those aren't gonna, what we need to do though is be able to provide the transportation for the bulk of our students to be able to get to the center and optimize the square footage. I hear what you're saying.
And I think
I'll
those are,
check with-
yeah, those are things that you guys can work out and bring to us, because I think that is a definite good use of money. If we can provide for more kids, get more kids what they need, that's a good use of tax dollars.
Even
Absolutely.
those little buses, those little activity buses that we just have in
Yeah,
Barton right now.
figure it out and bring us a price
You're
tag.
right, right. That little bus,
try to
was-
That
figure
little
it out.
bus, yeah, it was a nice little.
that little 14, you don't need a
These
CDL.
new programs that are going to be in, is there any way to get them started before the new facility actually opens? I mean, or do we have to wait until the new facility opens?
HVAC, collision repair, dental assistant are all gonna be space dependent.
Is there currently space to get them started at the current facility or somewhere else that we could start that at some vacant
I thought
space somewhere?
collision repair and HVAC were built in.
I thought it was all into the
He's
plan.
asking,
I'm asking, can we get them started
Oh,
before
you mean over to, I got you, I got you.
next year or, because we're still 24 months away?
I think some of
In
these
a
programs
utopic
probably meant to be
situation.
18,
Good point.
or some of these places require you to be 18 for insurance purposes for some of these industries.
Well, they'll say that, and we run into that a lot with the apprenticeship program. Companies that have, for maybe ever, said, oh, they gotta be 18. Well, we've come to understand that that is a preferential thing. It's not mandated by, it might be an internal thing to that company. But the companies, there's companies that have said that. Matter of fact, we've had talks with PFG over in Vinton, manufacturing. They were real edgy about it, and we went over and talked with them, and they seem open. They've kind of broken down that barrier. So it just depends. I think Carter Machinery, we've had good conversation with them, but they said hard mind, 18. got to be 18. So they're one of the few companies we talked with that feel very secure in the number of people they're getting to apply to positions and stuff like that. Most companies we talk with are looking for other ways to get people in their pipeline.
Yeah, we're fortunate to have a lot of industry here.
Yes, we are. And I have heard anecdotally, I have heard it was at a conference, and I don't have the direct quote, but I believe the Roanoke Metropolitan Statistical Area is tied at the top of the list in Virginia for the most diverse industry base, which kind of surprised me. I thought like Virginia Beach or Northern Virginia. I don't know why they're not more diverse, but I think we were tied with Richmond. With how diverse our, it's not just manufacturing. Health science is big, but we've got a lot of other stuff in the valley, and I think we need to prepare our students for a lot of those, and we do a good job with that.
Absolutely.
Wanted to put this in there, eliminated from the CTE Center scope per your request is the Center for Visual Arts moving. It will remain as a specialty center, but will be relocated to Northside High School. And the Center for Performing Arts is going to be phased out, and we're hopeful that those students will be able to incorporate into their base high school drama programs and be able to take advantage of that and make those more robust and effective there. And in summary, this is my last slide, I hope. Yes, it was. Yes, it's my last slide. The future capacity, right now, estimating about 1,060 students. That's, let me see, I had the number here. Based on our current enrollment, that would be 325 new openings. When we implement everything fully, it'll take a little while. We're not going to be able to start with, a full slate that first year of first-year students. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to take any new students the second year, most likely. So it'll take a little bit to get to there, but I think a lot of new offerings. I want to mention that we're always after industry input, and those partnerships are vital. We're actively engaged in talks with many of them right now. Mr. York's a big help with that. Adult education, I've already talked about, not going to dwell on that, but just making sure we're keeping that in mind for evening opportunities and just being able to provide more opportunities for students. So, Mr. Hudson, did you have further questions?
You already answered it when we were back a couple slides ago.
right.
Anybody have anything?
I do, in light of the conversation, and you don't have to decide this evening, but we do need to decide sooner than later if the consensus of the board would be to not allocate space at the new center for, our preschool program, like Tap Head Start, like we currently have. We need to know that sooner than later so that we can get that information to our folks who are working on our detailed phase proposals.
I know me personally feel like that we're looking at areas where we're short on space and we're trying to add programs that are relevant to what we're trying to do. So for me, it's an easy answer. I don't know
Me
what you
too.
guys-
Well, I think so too. If Mr. Sir came to us and said, well, we really don't need that space, that's one thing, but we've got program after program that we could put into that space. And that's not to diminish what the preschool offers, but, there might be another space we have or so, or they can find another, off-site space, so.
All right, it looks-
I would agree. There's plenty of places along Peters Creek Road, if Head Start feels the need to be close to that new facility, that they could probably find something themselves.
I agree too. I love the idea of the diesel tech, and then you actually mentioned the orthodontics and the dental. There's so many opportunities that we can be offering our students.
And as I mentioned, we truly did have to eliminate most of those just flex spaces, right, to be able to expand and put in things that, the Rad Tech program is actually a great example, and I do think it's worth going back to Corellian and asking that question. But that's a great example of something that just popped up last year, actually before, after the school year started, and took off running. And, we had kids who jumped right into it. So we can't sit here right now and anticipate what might be needed 2 or 3 years from now. So having those flex spaces, I do think is important.
Well, let's do that. I think, if you guys are
All right,
all right,
so-
let's
I'm all right with
contact
that.
Corellian and see where we're at with that. And if we can, and we'll work on the transportation piece. I'm sure Ken, your staff, we can figure out how we can get the kids there.
But are we all in agreement over that, saving that little extra space for other programs?
Tap Head Start.
The TAP Head Start?
Oh,
We're all-
absolutely, that's what we were
okay,
talking
So
about.
we needed the design phase, to people to know that.
We'll take care of that.
Yep, because we definitely want all these programs that have been talked about.
Imagine if we could have 2 lanes for the diesel tech, or, I mean, just the motorsports.
Well, the kind of spaces that we're talking, having these flex spaces, that would be my recommendation, that we really think of it.
Well, even if you split it up, maybe you split it up with 2 programs, but anyway, you've got the space available.
I would love to have some conversations with some of our people on the ground, too, honestly. Some of our instructors.
Absolutely.
I would love to hear firsthand from them, and not to take anything away from you or Ken or anybody, but I feel like that sometimes when you hear directly from the people that are in the trenches, you know, they may know something that can make things a whole lot easier for their particular program, so.
Can I add one thing to that? When we start this construction phase, like when we did Bird, I thought it was done very, very well in that Tammy went to the instructors and they really had a hand in formulating what these classrooms are going to look like. And so as we develop, once we, I guess, pick a company or architect, and then those instructors come in and kind of help you formulate what they need in these. And so I would say that's a model for how we should do every school from here on out, I think.
I think it's a great
Absolutely.
idea.
And
because
they've, of course, already done that with the preliminary phases, right? But yes, they need to be involved in as we get to specifics. right?
And especially with the niche things, like motorsports, for example. I mean, Mr. Overfelt's a gem. I mean, we're not going to be able to replace him. And I think that giving him an opportunity to say, hey, this is what would really benefit my kids and what we're trying to do, or going to the auto mechanic fellow, what was his
Mr.
name?
Hoback.
Mr. Hoback, and say, hey, look, what do you perceive with diesel here? What do you need?
Right.
I don't want somebody coming in saying, well, we're just going to put you a garage bay here and that's going to be the end of it. And then we miss out, and then we're going to need $300,000 a year from now to put a heavy-duty
the right
lift
stuff
in
in,
because somebody
right.
doesn't understand what we really need. So I think we can miss out on a lot if we don't put these guys that are doing the job every day, their input into what we're doing. I think that's a great idea, and I think that's how we need to move forward with it, is everybody needs, all the way to cosmetology, to culinary, everybody needs to have a little bit of say-so in what's going on before we just let a consultant come in and say, oh, this is what you need, here you go. Here's 20 Lincoln welders, and it may not even be what we really need for the industry, so.
Yep.
And to your point, I think it's also important for those folks to go out to the CTE centers and see what they have. I mean, touring Culpeper, touring Massanutten, all these different centers, and talking to those directors and asking them, what are your do's and don'ts? What would you do differently? How would you change things if you had to? Because they have valuable input and are a valuable resource for us. Because some of these centers were just built, and some things we know they made a couple mistakes on it. They had to redirect and pivot. But even for our instructors to go and see these different centers and see, oh, I like that piece of equipment, and that would be really neat to have.
I think Mr. Kish just mentioned that he's planning to take some
Some of them?
teachers up to Culpeper, matter of fact, I think.
Okay.
Well, you see some things, I mean, not to
Absolutely.
pick on that site, but one thing
Yeah.
we noticed there was, we didn't think they built in enough storage
Storage.
spaces, and they put too much up.
above.
So those are things to avoid, too.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm saying, the do's and the don'ts.
Right.
Well, and just having that instructor's input, to me, is more important because they're dealing with it every day. They know what it takes, more so than somebody that's consulting for their individual need. So I think that would be invaluable.
Sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Well, thank you for everything. We really appreciate it. I know it was a long,
It was very
a
valuable.
lot of work you put into that, and we greatly
It really
appreciate the
was.
detail.
Thank you.
I know
Thanks,
you did-
Jason.
It took you a while.
All right, last thing.
3.02, review a process for naming of schools. Dr. Rhonda Stegall. Is this your only slide?
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Yes.
It's the
I
first
am
of 30.
efficient. Yeah. Okay, so just wanted to briefly cover the guidelines and the procedures in case there's any interest of the board to consider a new name for the CTE Center, and just wanted to talk about what that would look like if you had a desire to do that. The superintendent would appoint a committee of 9 to 12 people, of parents, community leaders, and school staff. However, that's typically when there's one school, but this involves 5 schools, so we might want to increase that number and have more people on the committee, since we would want feedback from all different areas of the county, since it's feeding into one school. So we would appoint that committee, and then the committee would work, and they would come up with a recommendation to the superintendent. They would have to have clear rationale on the reason for making that recommendation, and then have broad community input. So maybe that would be a survey to people, whatever it is that they could do to get that support, and then the superintendent would make a recommendation to the board. So just to let you know, if there was any interest, that we would want to move forward with creating a committee when that time comes, and we could go from there.
Well, I do believe from conversations I've had, there is an interest in the direction the board wants to go, is the possibility of renaming, correct? I would disagree with we need more than 9 to 12 people, because I feel like we get more than that, and we'll take 3 years to figure out a name.
So just need to make sure it's a cross-section of the county versus one of the.
So we have 5 districts, so, 2 per district
Probably 10 to 15, yeah, probably 10 to 15.
would put you at 10, even 3 would put you at 15, but I think anything more than that, and you're starting to get.
Even
good.
one
I
per
agree.
district.
I'm
Yeah.
fine with one per
One per
district,
district,
honestly,
yeah.
And
myself, but I
then you
don't
come
know.
up with 5 to 7 more.
Yeah.
But the
Maybe-
policy dictates 9 to 12.
We changed that policy a month after we set up that policy, so
We didn't change it.
we didn't change, that's right, we
You waived it.
amended it.
You waived
Or
it.
waived it.
We ignored it.
So,
Yeah. Only one in here that was on that
well, I don't want to
committee
get
that
hit
changed it or did it.
for violating policy, so.
Yeah, I think you have a policy for a reason, but I agree with you, Brent, keep it within that, yeah. Actually, I don't think it's gonna be a tough name to figure out, because if you go to all the tech centers throughout the state of Virginia and across the United States, they all are the name of the county.
I ain't got many
And
months to
Tech
give you a hard
Ed or
time.
Tech Center
Well,
or
and we're
some
not
version of that.
looking, we're not looking to name it after an individual,
Count
which
the
makes it a
days.
lot easier too. I think when you get involved in that, then it's a whole nother level of, you're gonna have.
Yes, so the revised policy prohibits naming a school.
Right.
Not a part of a school, but a whole school out of, after a person. I mean, if we wanted to keep the current name, I don't think that'd be a violation of policy, because it's, we're basically replacing that school. But what I'm hearing is a consensus to go ahead and start working on forming a committee, and I do think they'll need time to do this, and there's some branding reasons, even as we, choose a company to build it and all that kind of thing. I think making this decision sooner than later
I agree.
has its advantages.
Now, one thing, and this might be a silly question, because I know it was a long time ago, but does anybody know of any family of Mr. Burton?
I believe.
That's a very
I
good
believe
point.
when we changed it from Arnold R. Burton Technology Center, when Andy McClung was principal, there was an investigation there. I think there was a surviving wife at that time, but I think she has passed.
So it's my understanding
been a
that this
long
gentleman is really who was responsible for bringing a technical center here. Does anybody know that?
He was superintendent in the late sixties, and so when the current building was built, he would have, I think, been
believe so.
superintendent.
It was built.
I think if we change the name, maybe we do something just to recognize the fact that.
Or maybe at the new center, you
Yes.
could name
A
something.
plaque, something, and then
Right,
at
the
least,
administrative area
In memory
after
of,
him or
or-
something.
yes, something to recognize that this gentleman
idea.
brought this to Roanoke County originally, give him credit for that.
That's a great
'Cause
idea.
It's kind of a disservice to just forget.
Or
Right.
rename something,
So there's, what is there, Roanoke City Tech Ed, what are they called?
Rotech.
Rotech.
And there's gonna be a day tech.
What's that?
Rough.
Dale?
Okay, it's real easy. Roco Tech, we're done.
And I'd say Roco Tech, I mean, I think that's kind of cool. We could get Salo's team to find a
Cheryl,
really
you're not
cool.
on the committee.
Okay, I'm not on the committee.
Okay, so I'm assuming we want to go by, I mean, obviously
it
we
has
want
a
to
good
go by
ring to it.
policy. I'm not advocating to violate any policy, so 2 people per district would put it at 10. I mean, is that
I
reasonable?
think you want somebody from the school. I think you certainly want somebody from central office. One from each district would
And we
be,
could probably stay at 9 to 12.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to include some, staff, some teachers at the center, for example.
Yeah. I think one from each district, and then Ken comes up with the other
Well, I think go
4
ahead and
to
move.
7.
we'll just leave it up to you, Ken. You go
Yeah,
ahead,
go
move
ahead,
forward.
pick your people.
Just make sure
But tell
you-
them, I really like Roco Tech. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, my God.
Listen, Mr. Sean.
Okay, I'll send you the list.
She's going to be
We
on the
trust that
committee.
you'll do what you need to do to
Yes,
make
you-
sure that it's fair and equitable, and we're gonna get a quality,
Quality survey.
I mean, I'm assuming that we
Oh,
will
then we
get
have-
like maybe a list in order of rank of what the committee come up with, not just one name, but we would get like one, like maybe 3 different options.
Probably, I think that,
And then
probably like the Citizens Advisory, identified sites, right?
Right.
And I think it'd be a similar kind of thing. I think they'd probably, hopefully have a proper recommendation, but maybe report like what other things were considered. That way the school board could say, well,
Yeah, if we didn't like something because of something, then
Right.
we would have another option.
there you go.
And then it
Okay,
goes out
great.
to a survey? Does it need to go to survey? or-
It doesn't
Okay.
have to.
We don't have to. Okay, just want to be clear on that.
No, we're just gonna ask you. We're waiting for the Fashani wing. We're waiting on the
Yes.
donation
I thought
for
it
the
was gonna be called
Fashani
the
wing.
Greenway Center. Is that?
No, you don't want anything named that.
All right, well, I think that's all we have. Anybody have any questions or anything? All right, well, thank you, everybody, for being here.
All right,
Meeting
thank you,
adjourned.
Jason.